everything will be valued in Bitcoin, in my opinion. And to me, it already is. Bitcoin doesn't change. One Bitcoin always equals one Bitcoin. It's the mathematics and the physics of it don't change. In the future, if someone wants Bitcoin from me, it has to be real, actual value, something I really actually need. That's what a unit of account is supposed to be. I don't need to keep my Bitcoin miners running, getting me money if someone down the road in my community is going to die from cold. It's this beautiful system, right? That takes that energy that's completely unused, but we're happy to turn off if someone else needs the energy more. Bitcoin can be the measuring stick. It can be the measuring stick, not just for dollars or lira or euros or the British pound, whatever, right? It can actually be the measurement stick for everything. It's almost a mathematical certainty that the value increases because it's a mathematical certainty that throughout the life of this adoption cycle of this technology, Bitcoin becomes more and more scarce. Bitcoin is mathematically programmed to increase in value.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to G'day Bitcoin. I'm your host, Sean. Joining us today is Rebel in Texas, David. We're going to dive into Bitcoin security budget, all things Bitcoin mining. This is going to be a 101 Bitcoin mining masterclass. David, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thanks very much for having me. That's a big intro, a masterclass. I'll do my best.
We'll keep it very simple. I was saying to yourself, David, before the show, I don't know a lot really about Bitcoin mining. I am running a BitX there, CK solo pool, Australia. I did see the other day that somebody in the Australia pool did win the block reward. It was not me. Full disclosure, I did check.
You wouldn't dox yourself if you did anyway. Yeah, don't do that.
I wouldn't, but I probably wouldn't be here today either. I
We
probably
wouldn't
would
be
have taken
talking. Take the day.
would have taken the day off and gone flying, but we'll save that for Friday. So, David, like one of the most common bits of FUD that I see within the Bitcoin space, and it's mainly from the Ethereum maxis, delinquents, the gamblers, the speculators, people playing around with the altcoins, is Bitcoin security budget when it comes to mining. The block reward, as it keeps tapering off over time, every 210,000 blocks, approximately every 4 years, it's cut in half. And they don't think that the block reward is going to be sufficient. Now, I've got a good friend, Michael Dunworth, who sent and time locked Bitcoin into the future. He's published the private keys to remove a little bit of this FUD. But from a mining perspective, or you're a consultant within the Bitcoin mining ecosystem, what are your thoughts in regards to like the block reward compensation for miners? And is that adequate, or do we need to start adding things in like spam and stuff to Bitcoin to increase the fees? Or what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, Bitcoin will evolve into something based on the needs of its users. And so I'm not, I guess, technical enough or even well-versed enough to posit a very strong theory one way or the other. But when I step back and look at it from just a purely monetary perspective, Bitcoin really is a beautiful capitalistic, Bitcoin mining specifically is a beautifully capitalistic system and operation. So the Bitcoin is worth whatever it is worth. And the hash rate is a direct representation of what we consider it to be worth. So, for example, if the Bitcoin value goes up dramatically, as we've seen in previous bull runs, everybody hustles to get their hash rate online, and they over leverage and they pay for energy that's way too expensive. They get in way over their skis. And then when there's a correction or a crash, the over leveraged are always the first to get knocked out and that sort of thing. But that's a good thing, right? This actually goes all the way back to I think not just what Satoshi, but like, Adam Back and everybody that's worked on digital currency, digital cash from the beginning wanted to be at the root of what this is. Um, the energy that is expelled is immediately turned into monetary currency, if you will. Um, it is in direct correlation of the cost of that energy, and it is in direct correlation to how much we want that currency, and then also how much people are willing to pay to get that currency. So right now we have a very it's kind of an interesting time in Bitcoin mining. We have a time where the value, in my opinion, is very high. Um, we're very close to an all time high of 126, 127, whatever that number was. And I think today, as of today, we're like 115, but that's just a few percentage points off. Um, and hash rate is high, but if you control your costs and you go find energy that is readily available, mostly unwanted or unused, sometimes even waste energy. Bitcoin miners can be buyers of last resort, right? We don't have to buy the most expensive energy in the middle of a metropolitan area, right? We'll go out to the middle of nowhere and go get it. Um, if you manage that properly, manage your costs properly, you can get Bitcoin at a discount off the spot value. So if you're managing your power correctly, just operations, this is not a capital expenditure, in the equation, but for your initial investment. But right now, miners that are up and running at some of the, places that I've worked on or I work with, they're getting Bitcoin at 50, 60,000 US dollars when it's worth almost double that right now. Right.
Wow.
So the question is, what does it cost to create a Bitcoin? Right now, if you take that's just power and operation, manpower, operations to keep them up and running, managing your uptime, things like that. Now, you take into consider where the risk comes in is how much it costs to get these miners up and running, how much it costs for the equipment, how much it costs for the land, and then obviously, you want to negotiate that power as low as you possibly can. So sometimes you have to bring some capital up front to prepay for power to get better deals, etc. Um, but the point of all that is to say it's purely capitalistic. If Bitcoin value goes up, more people will come to mine Bitcoin and secure the network. More people will run nodes. All of these, more people will transact in Bitcoin. More people will want it, and it works very well. The system levels itself out, right? It's the natural order of things. In fact, it's really physics, and I believe that energy is the currency of the universe. So the same way that the universe, Earth, nature, if left to its own devices, normalizes and levels itself out to a large degree. Yes, sometimes there's some chaos, but for the most part, it equalizes itself. Well, Bitcoin is based on math and physics, so it also levels itself out. Um, nothing actually changes with Bitcoin. What actually changes is our perception of it. So as we drive the value up, more people get excited and they want to come on board. And then there's a bit of a correction and it goes down, or people get over leveraged and make bad decisions. Then the hash rate comes back down. So it doesn't need to be anything more than what it is. And I feel that if that continues the same way it has so far, even when all the block subsidy is completely gone, um, the value of having and or transacting in Bitcoin, and it may be a situation where the blocks have fewer and fewer transactions as a whole, but those transactions are so valuable because of the finality, because of the true settlement. Right? There's no third party. It's trustless system. There's no way for no takebacks. It's done. Um, the value of those transactions are going to be more than high enough to operate the network and continue mining, if you will, not because I want a block subsidy, but because maybe I just want a few 100,000 sats. But if those 100,000 sats are the purchasing power of $300,000 or $400,000 today, right?
Yeah.
The equivalent of today in the future, I'm going to mine Bitcoin, right? And then if they become less, some people will leave. And if it becomes more valuable, more people, it is a constant ebb and flow. And so saying that you have to do this or have to push this way and that sort of thing, we don't have to do anything other than just continue to use it. Now, it'll take other forms, and yes, you can inscriptions and ordinals and runes and there's always these things that you can do with it, because ultimately it is a ledger, and a ledger is a data system, and you can store whatever data you want on it, right? But the true value of Bitcoin, but you can store data anywhere. Yes, there's some sort of finality having it on the blockchain forever, which is great, but the true value, right, is that store of value, being able to transact, that medium of exchange, and then ultimately a unit of measurement, right? Because of that hard cap, it's a unit of measurement. You can't use the dollar as a unit of measurement. You can't use fiat currency. You can't use Ethereum as a unit of measurement. I don't care what they say. Most other blockchains, XRP, Ripple started XRP, and I think they're missing like 50,000 blocks somewhere in there.
Yeah,
I'm,
that's right.
I'm not a super technical guy on that, but I'm just looking at it. I'm like, you can't trust, you can't measure something if the ruler stretches and contracts. You can't.
Yeah.
The distance is going to be different every single time, right? It's like a ruler that's made of cello and it stretches a little bit and it falls apart. It's like, that's really what the dollar is. And so eventually everything will be valued in Bitcoin, in my opinion. And to me, it already is.
If you've still got your Bitcoin on an exchange, or you're looking to take your Bitcoin security to the next level, I've partnered with the Bitcoin Way. They offer live help for setting up cold storage, running your own node, keeping your Bitcoin private, planning for the future, using multi-sig, and so much more. They never touch your keys. They will not touch your coins. Instead, they'll show you how to buy and keep them safe. If you want to make your Bitcoin setup safer, you can book a free 30-minute call and have a chat with them. Safedine Amoose, the author of the Bitcoin Standard, Natalie Brunel, Preston Pish, and so many more recommend the professional IT cybersecurity team. Couple of outstanding things here. You can see they've been featured in Forbes, Bitcoin Magazine, Bitcoin Prague, Zero Hedge, Simply Bitcoin, the Bitcoin Safedine, the Bitcoin Standard podcast with Safedine Amoose, Bitcoin News, obviously Gday Bitcoin for a long time. They're the world experts in helping people become self-sovereign. It's not just about protecting your Bitcoin stash. Yes, they will help you do that in a very easy to understand step-by-step process. But from there, they can help you secure your data. They are your personal cybersecurity IT experts. And then step number 3 is getting a second passport, a Plan B residency. The team, very cheap, very affordable for people that are looking to take their sovereignty to the next level. You can find out more about their services. When you first log in to their website as well, they have got a free 3-minute quiz to allow you to check if you are doing your cybersecurity, your setup correctly. I urge everyone to jump onto the bitcoinway.com. I have put a link into the description for everyone. Could not recommend them enough. I've used them personally before I ever partnered with them for the channel, friends and family. They asked me to help them out. I'm like, go to the world experts. That is the Bitcoin Way. So reach out to the Bitcoin Way today.
Yep. When in volatility in the market, you see the value of stocks go up and down dramatically and that sort of thing. And it's because, something happens at the company, they're not making money, or there's a catastrophe or a marketing scandal or something happens, right? That changes what that company is. And then we value it differently based on what happens. Bitcoin doesn't change. One Bitcoin always equals one Bitcoin. It's the mathematics and the physics of it don't change. So there's 21 million. There will always be 21 million. Now, whether we have access to them or not, that's another story, right? But there's always 21 million. Nothing's ever going to change about that. More nodes will come on or off. More, hash rate will come on or off to chasing that subsidy. But ultimately, Bitcoin itself doesn't change, just our perceptions do. So once, as part of my orange pill journey, once I kind of made that realization and I started looking at valuing myself and, my finances, I didn't look at the dollar amount anymore. I looked at the Bitcoin. And then when something comes up and I have to spend a little bit, right, or I sell it to spend some for something, that something has to really have value to me. And that's why I believe it's going to be a unit of measurement. It's going to level the playing field, right? No more companies going to be able to just create something because the government flows dollars into it for no reason, right? Other than power and control.
Yeah.
If in the future, if someone wants Bitcoin from me, it has to be real, actual value, something I really actually need. That's what a unit of account is supposed to be, right? It sees through, the BS. It sees through all the scams and the lies and verifies and says, "Oh, this is just another fiat game," right? But if I'm hungry or I want good food and I'm tired of, you know, um, the government and other organizations, poisoning my food and giving me unhealthy food or destroying, farmers and ranchers around me. I just go straight to them and start transacting in Bitcoin and say, hey, I will give you, it's worth it to me, right? Because your health is, you only get that once, right?
That's true.
So that's what it's supposed to do. And I believe that if you just let it do that, it will continue doing that. As more people see the value and come to that realization that Bitcoin can be the measuring stick. It can be the measuring stick, not just for dollars or lira or euros or the British pound, whatever, right? It can actually be the measurement stick for everything physical. Just let it do that, and everything will work out fine. It'll actually create a deflationary life for us, which right now anybody who's alive and lived longer than 10 years, they can't imagine they can't imagine how your life would actually get less expensive every year. It's hard to kind of understand that, but Bitcoin can make that happen. So we
Yeah.
don't need to,
And
we don't need anything else. We don't need anything else.
unless they've been on Bitcoin for the last 10 years or the last 2 years or the
Mhm.
last 5 years, they 100% understand what de hard money
Yeah.
can do to one's life. And,
Yeah.
their flex of deflation are absolutely amazing. Like walk around the shops and stuff, and just the price of everything in fiat dollars is so crazy. I'm spending
Mhm.
$300 a week plus on stake each week. But if you're to measure in that Bitcoin, like the stake's only gotten cheaper and cheaper and cheaper
Yeah,
over the
it
last
has.
last couple of years. And when you like realize that and you know that that's true, it's absolutely amazing.
I have a story I like to tell my son. My 15-year-old just got braces to fix his teeth,
Yep.
and we went and for most of his life, really up until I didn't get into Bitcoin until he was 11 or 12, right? So most of his life it was a struggle, keeping the cars going. Getting a new car was a new-ish. We always bought used, right? But
Yeah.
is a rare thing. Um, we've made a lot of sacrifices to keep my boys in private Christian school, things like that. So we're just very mindful of money, and it always feels like a struggle. Even when I had good years, it was just a struggle. I just didn't understand why I couldn't keep up. Well, we're sitting in the doctor's office, and He said, yeah. He said, you're a perfect candidate. This is going to be great. Here's your timeline. It's probably going to cost about this. And then it's a little more, a little more for, you've got to go get to the oral surgeon, get your wisdom teeth removed and some other things. And he said, it's probably going to be around 10,000 US dollars for that. And I said, okay. And you could tell the doctor was like expecting, me to like go, oh, you just get upset about the value, the cost of it, and that
Yeah.
sort of thing. And even my son was like, "God, Dad, $10,000. It's a lot." And I thought, and I was like, I said, "No, it's fine. We'll just take care of it." I said, I'm
Yeah.
happy to pay it today. And he was like, "Oh, okay, great. Well, we'll get you scheduled, and you can just pay." On that day when you come in, and you do half then, and then we'll do half in like a couple weeks when you come back. And I was like, okay, great. So we go out and we get in the car, and my son is like, Dad, that's a lot of money. I said, well, it sounds like a lot of money. I said, but that $10,000 to me is actually only about $1,600.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, what do you mean it's $1,600? I said, well, I bought Bitcoin in September, October of 22 when it was around $20,000. Based on the current price today, that $10,000, I'm only paying $1,600 for it if you do the math. So, uh, yeah, normally in the past, before Bitcoin, something like that would have felt like I was like, it would have crushed me, right? We would have gotten through and figured it out, but it would have been very
Hurt.
difficult. So, and he had this kind of, his eyes got big, and you could see, light bulb kind of came on, right? He's 15. He gets it now.
Yeah.
And for the last few years, I have a 19-year-old and a 15-year-old. They've both been saving in Bitcoin. And my 19-year-old, you know, uh, has seen enough value appreciation in it to basically pay for his first year of school, like on his own with his own money that
Wow.
and still have a little bit left, right? So just in the couple years that he's been working and putting it in Bitcoin. So they're starting to get it, and I'm very happy. It's a wild time to be alive right now with this type of a solution here, this type of a technology. I'm very glad that they get to take advantage of that, and they grow up knowing what it's capable of. And it'll still be volatile and go up, and they're always fighting us, right? They're always fighting you. We're
Yeah.
always in, and then they fight you stage, right? But it's just I feel very blessed to have been alive personally, but even more so that they're going to have this. They're not going to have as much a struggle, hopefully financially, as I did.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty amazing. Um, like the effects that it can have. I've got a really good friend, shout out, and his cat had an accident and needed to go like to the vet emergency and stuff, and it was like $3,000 Australian, and there's like $300 worth of Bitcoin originally,
Mhm.
because he's been
Yeah.
saving it for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And then uh, and then yesterday, we had a bird as well that was sick, a rescue pigeon, rescue dove, and
Mhm.
when a bird's showing signs of sickness, like they're pretty bloody sick.
Yeah.
But anyway, we took her up to the emergency Sunday afternoon, out of hours and stuff, for a little bird, and went up and they said, like had a look at her and stuff, and then she brought like the thing. She's like talking through all this. And I'm like, what's the cost? And she's like, oh, talking about, I'm like, I just want to know what the cost is. Like, just tell me. She's like, somewhere between 500 and $1,000. I'm like, okay, do it. She's like, it's pretty unlikely the bird's going to survive. I'm like, that's fine. Just do like everything you can. Like, that's just go
Yeah.
ahead. And she's like,
Yep.
oh, you sure you don't want to think about something? I'm like, it's $1,000. Just do it. And get the call yesterday. Today being Tuesday. Yesterday morning. Sorry, Arame didn't make it. I'm like, thank you so much for like doing everything you can. like, what do we do next? Do we come pick her up? And is there any money owing? There's a couple of $100 owing. Put down a $500 deposit. Just went up
Mhm.
there and was just grateful to be able to pay it and not think about it. Like,
Yeah.
there's probably like an 80 or 90% chance that she wasn't going to live with it.
Yeah.
And like going back a couple of years or something, if there's the difference between like a 10% chance or holding on to $1,000, I would have taken the $1,000. But this
Yeah.
was a life of a being that was in our care.
Yeah.
And we just did what we needed to do, and we had the resources to be able to do it. Or my friend with his cat, or you with your son with his braces and stuff.
It allows you to take care of the things and people that you find valuable.
Yeah. It's like
And
real savings for once. We've got money
yeah.
that works as intended. We can save
Yeah.
for whatever that is.
Yeah.
And I didn't use Bitcoin, but I think about it. Like, I paid for it in fiat, but I just think about when I'm
Yep.
spending fiat. I've been stacking this 10 times cheaper than what it would be if I was just saving in fiat, for example. But coming back into the mining, I just want to sort of wrap up this Bitcoin security budget. And this is like super basic, but just let me know if I've gone off track a bit. Because Bitcoin's like almost like a hermetically sealed container, it like self governs itself. And the block reward, it's getting cut every 210,000 blocks.
Hmm.
So the miners, they come on as the Bitcoin price goes up. We see the hash rate go up, and sometimes that will lead it or whatever. But they're coming in with the anticipation that they're going to get Bitcoin cheaper. The people that are over leveraged, they can't make a profit with the block rewards they get. They're just going to drop off. Hash rate will decrease. The block reward, when that gets cut in half, some people are really going to struggle. So it's going to drop off even further if
Yes.
people find like a cheaper energy source, so they can get cheaper miners, or technologies change, the more hash rate will come on. But even though the block rewards going from 50 to 25 to 12.5 to 6.25, etc., and like coming down and down and down,
Hmm.
over time, Bitcoin's price is going up and up and up in fiat dollars. So even though the block reward's smaller and smaller, we don't really need so many fees at this stage to be compensating those miners. The Bitcoin rewards just doing that as intended by design, and to say that we need a like integrate spam or whatever so that the miners can walk away with the bigger paydays, maybe. Like, everyone wants more money, more wealth, whatever. So I can understand why they're advocating for it, but to keep Bitcoin as Bitcoin, like, we just need to let it do what it's doing. Would that be a fair way to sum up what you're saying?
The hash rate and the will increase or decrease as the value that we place on Bitcoin increases or decreases. But it's almost a mathematical certainty that the value increases, because it's a mathematical certainty that this, throughout the life of this adoption cycle of this technology, Bitcoin becomes more and more scarce. It's
Yeah.
just, it's built in, it's programmed in. So
Yeah.
if you just let it do that, you can. If you want to make more money through, it just seems that if you're trying to make it do something that it wasn't necessarily originally intended to, you know okay, but if you're just doing it because you say you want to make more money, or you want to increase the value or the buying power, go find something else to do it. Bitcoin is mathematically programmed to increase in value. It
Yeah.
doesn't need your help, kind of thing. As adoption happens, and every 4 or so years, the block reward is cut in half. It's programmed in to create that scarcity. So that scarcity is going to do everything that you need it to do to drive the value up. And as long as the governments of the world keep printing their fiat currency, right, the value of Bitcoin will go up because of that digital scarcity. So the real question is, does fiat hyperinflate so faster than the value of Bitcoin goes up. But eventually it all levels out, right?
Yeah.
If you just let the system work itself out.
I like that. So I sort of want to dive a little bit into your background. It might be helpful for a little bit of context. It could probably be inspiring for a lot of people. When I found Bitcoin, I came through shitcoins and I just wanted to break free. I just wanted to get out of the matrix. And I'd been searching for 10, 15 years and different side hustles and
Mhm.
businesses and everything like that. Never really got it. Bought a little bit of gold, a little bit of stocks. Asked a really wealthy mate of mine, what stock should I invest in? He's like, I'm not into stocks, I'm into crypto. Long story short, told me about a crypto within 2 weeks. I'm like, what is cryptocurrency? Bitcoin was the first cryptocurrency. Like, oh shit, like what's the price of Bitcoin? Oh, 300 times more expensive than
Yeah.
when I first heard about it. But then like really started reading it, studying down the books. And then I was like, oh, like this is the most important thing um, of our generation, but almost in human history. Like it's the fairest money that's ever existed in human
Mhm.
history. Like I just need to um, devote a portion of my life, my soul towards Bitcoin. And that's why I've got the podcast and I'm talking to people and I'll buy books and send them out. Um, and that's how I feel like I can contribute in my own unique way. But like so many other people will go out, and they'll get into the mining side of things, or the like what the Bitcoin way does, channel partners. They'll teach people how to secure Bitcoin, how to take 100% self custody to it.
Mhm.
Other people can, in Australia, retirement accounts, self managed super funds help people put Bitcoin into those. But you've gone down the mining route as a consultant. So maybe how do you get into Bitcoin mining? Why do you get into Bitcoin mining? And then some of the things that you're doing, because you're doing some really interesting things, not just in the States, but over the world when it comes to the mining aspect.
Yeah, I wasn't. Someone told me about Bitcoin in like 2014, 2015, and I just dismissed it. I just thought it was Chuck E. Cheese tokens. It's like, why would I want that? I just assumed it was, just a dollar per dollar kind of change thing, and so I just wasn't ready for it. Right, I had a company that was fairly successful. um, I was actually working with two different companies. One was pretty successful, the other never really amounted to anything, but I wasn't ready for it. Right, my boys were still younger, our bills weren't that crazy. I didn't need it. um, Fast forward to 2019, I've lost my company. I'm broke. I've been trying to interview and find other jobs, try to go back to an employee as opposed to a business owner, and nothing's working, nothing's happening, and I just pretend everything's okay, and it's not. I'm running through money like crazy.
Yeah,
I didn't curb any of my spending. I didn't make any dramatic life change. I didn't even tell my wife, like, the situation we were in, really.
yeah,
And then come October of that year, I wake up and I've got it wasn't really a lot of credit card debt, right? But I had credit card debt, no income, almost all the cash was gone. I was dipping into like retirement accounts to stay afloat, and and I finally told her, what had happened, and she was so upset. She literally said to me, she's like, "Man, I kind of just wish you cheated on me. Like
wow,
that almost would have been easier than you've been lying or not telling the truth for, 9 months, right?"
yeah,
And so I took my car in. I had a nice Dodge Charger. It was kind of, I love that car. I took it in, traded in for a nice little small vehicle, and drove over to the other side of town because I didn't want anyone really to know. And I went into a Domino's Pizza and I said, "Hey, I need a job." Right. Turns out I actually knew the franchise owner, through some, like, networking and just local network and things like that. But I didn't know that at the time, and I just walked in there and said, This is, I need a full-time job. And the guy there running the place was, even a few years younger than me. He's like, you need a job? And I was like, yeah. He said, do you have a car? I was like, yeah, right there. He's like, how old are you? You need it. I was like, yeah, I've been successful. I'm not right now. I need a job. He said, show up tomorrow. So I started that in 2019. And so during COVID and the lockdowns, right. I delivered food for most of the time. My boys were stuck at home because they couldn't go to school. My wife was working, so she would leave early in the morning, and then at like 2 in the afternoon, I'd go out to work, and I'd work till close. And in a weird way, it was good. Well, it's good for multiple reasons. It knocked me down quite a bit, got me humble, and also for the first time in a long time, I was being productive and I was bringing home cash. I had to go to my father-in-law and said, to get a loan to pay that off. Otherwise, I felt like I was never going to get around that credit card ever. It was going to eat me alive. And he was great. He gave me a loan, and that went for about a year and a half. And I was miserable. And I was on YouTube like late at night, like I'd stay up late at night and I was watching things. And the house we had to have a nice house, right? Had a koi pond in the back, and the fish that we'd had there were kind of pets, and I always loved it. And I was like, I've been looking at pond stuff on YouTube. I'm going to build a raised grow bed. And so I went out and I just bought a bunch of stuff I didn't have the money for. And I wanted to do something with my hands. I wanted to build. And I did it. And my neighbor across the street came out to ask me what I was doing. And so I told him what I was doing. We looked at it and talking about the fluid dynamics, the math I had to do. I said, I've created this system here. It's a flood and drain system. It's got a bell siphon. It does this, and the roots get this, and water and oxygen, and the fish poop fertilizes, all that good stuff. And he's like, "Are you an engineer?" I was like, "No, I just like figuring things out." And he asked me if I knew anything about Bitcoin mining, and I said, "No, I really don't." He said, have you ever heard of immersion cooling?" I'm like, "No." At the time, he was the CEO of an immersion cooling company that had just sold the publicly traded miner Riot 200 megawatts worth of immersion cooling. And so for anyone listening who doesn't know what immersion cooling is, instead of putting a computer in air and flowing air through it with fans, you take the fans off and you put it in an oil bath, and you like up and down instead of like this horizontally. You put it vertically, and cold fluid comes in the bottom, flows through it over a lip, kind of like a waterfall. It's called a weir, I guess is the technical term. And it takes the heat out more efficiently than air does. It's a dielectric fluid, so it doesn't conduct electricity. It's kind of like a fine, clean motor oil. It's carbon based, that sort of thing. So they had just closed that first deal, so I came in, helped them sell some more, and learned about Bitcoin mining and just kind of daily working with these people and helping to deploy that at that scale and understanding it. And then very quickly, they wanted me to focus on traditional data centers and sell to other data centers. But over time, I was meeting these Bitcoin miners at conferences and who I was selling to and working with. And I was like, man, these cowboys they're so much fun. They're going out in the middle of nowhere and, doing things that have never been done before. And I realized how special it was one day when I was Googling, like my primary focus was doing kind of the modeling and numbers for these things, right? Like, can you overclock them? How much more Bitcoin could you yield if you do this? How much more power does it take? So I was kind of figuring all those things out. And one day I was like, oh, I don't know what this is. And I get online and I'd search it, and there's nothing online. There's nothing anywhere that can answer this question for me and tell me what I need to know. And I kind of sat back in my chair at my desk and I was like, I'm like in no man's land. I'm in uncharted territory. I'm on the edge of the map. I'm going off the edge of,
Wow.
if you're a flat earther, right? I'm going off the edge right now. I don't know what's going on. Um, and so I was like, it just kind of hit me how special that was. I was like, well, hell, if I'm going to figure this out, I'm just going to have to do it myself, you know? And that was an amazing feeling. And I got hooked. Um, the company wanted me to kind of focus more on traditional data centers, and the traditional data center space was not ready, still isn't ready for that kind of a technology. And so I eventually had a falling out with them, and I left. Some very nice guys from Miami gave me my first gig. They wanted to get into Bitcoin, and they let me work for them and help them build their first Bitcoin mine. It was 8 megawatts of immersion cooling, which I did know, and then 8 megawatts of air, which is even simpler than immersion cooling. And that was kind of my paid education to understand how to build these data centers and things like that. And I've just been working on different projects ever since. The entire time uh, I've just been, putting everything I possibly can into Bitcoin. And that timing of that worked out really well. My falling out with them was in 2020 two, beginning of 2022. And I was kind of dollar cost averaging down. I'd made a little bit of money with them, and I dollar cost averaged down. And then when we got to the low in 2022 at 20K, I went all in with whatever little I had left, like retirement, everything. It all went in there. And then
Nice.
I cried on the floor in the fetal position when it went down to 16 because I dropped 25% of my net worth. And I was like, I have screwed my family again. Um, but it was a tough Christmas and things like that. But then, it started climbing out and things got better, and I'd get a little job here and there, and I'd do something over here. I learned how to off-grid mining works. So these guys that were doing flare gas, they would go
Mm,
take waste gas from oil wells or gas wells that they couldn't put on a pipeline or sell or monetize, and they would put it through a generator, turn it into electricity, and then mine Bitcoin right there. Um, to my knowledge, there's no other technology out there that can do that right out in the middle of nowhere. You did have to have some sort of a data connection, which was challenging at times, but so I learned about power generation and things like that, and that's what really over that time, it's what really gelled and brought me into realizing that Bitcoin is energy money. Energy is the currency of the universe, right? You either
yep.
have energy stored and you can eventually use it to do something. And this is a universal principle, right? Like energy stored and compressed until there's some sort of an explosion and things change and push and move, and then it's energy being expelled. And I just realized it's like, man, Bitcoin is an immediate monetization of energy. And so I just kind of started moving into the energy side of things, and then started to realize um, what was happening in Texas at the time, which is where I am and where I've been working this whole time. The China mining ban happened like right before I came in, and all of those guys were moving over into Texas, and we saw this magic thing happen with the Texas power grid. Bitcoin miners will come on and they'll take power and give revenue to the power generation companies that they wouldn't normally get, because we would take power when no one else needed it and didn't use it. And then when everyone else needed it in times of stress or extreme heat or extreme cold, we would turn off and let that power run back to everybody else. Right. So it was an amazing opportunity to stabilize energy for everyone else, right? Because we could take that energy that no one else wanted and we could immediately turn it into money. And then, but if we needed to turn off, if somebody needed it more, and again, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, right? Bitcoin allows you to care for and to take care of the things that matter most, right? Ultimately, money doesn't matter. It is just a medium to get things done and to do what we need and to get the things that we need to live. And then sometimes to do more interesting things, right? To push innovation and things. But I don't need to keep my Bitcoin miners running, getting me money if someone down the road in my community is going to die from cold, right? I'm
Yeah.
going to turn off, and I'm going to. So it's this beautiful system, right? That takes that energy that's completely unused, but we're happy to turn off if someone else needs the energy more, right? It's a it's just an amazing system. There's some really off grid gas site mining, or waste gas methane mitigation for landfills. There's some companies doing that. Um, One of the best projects I ever got to work on was in Norway, where they took 3 megawatts of hydroelectric power, and in Norway, you don't pay taxes on your power if you, or at least back then, you didn't pay taxes on your power as long as you were providing heat, right? So, like, if you were taking energy and providing heat during the wintertime, you got a break on energy costs. You didn't pay taxes on it. We bought heat, power, and we're providing heat. But the way we did it was we used the Bitcoin miners in an immersion system to heat a water loop that would preheat the water that was going into a boiler. So we would raise it anywhere
Mm.
from 6 to 10 degrees Celsius from whatever it came in, and then they would pay us for that warm water. So the energy I was getting, that I was paying for, they were paying us a profit for that energy. But the way we were doing it was producing Bitcoin. So I was mining Bitcoin on that site at a negative power price. I was getting paid to mine Bitcoin.
What?
So these, when you realize this is a possibility, these types of things are a possibility, you start to look at Bitcoin as a vehicle, Bitcoin mining as a vehicle to get to use that energy multiple times, right? So there are guys now, probably not just in the US, probably all over the world, that have a Bitcoin miner running in their house in the wintertime, and they plug it into their ventilation system, or they just sit it in a corner of their house, and it's their heater. And they're getting
Yeah.
a rebate in Bitcoin back on the energy cost, right? So there's so many inefficiencies in energy, the way that we distribute it, the way we try to gatekeep it, the way that energy providers work. There's so much lost. Bitcoin is a way to eliminate a lot of those inefficiencies, or at the very least, profit and get revenue off of those inefficiencies and the waste that plagues these systems, right? Um, in Texas, to balance the grid, these energy producers, it's much more efficient and cost effective for them to just produce energy all the time. But if there's nobody to take it, they're just producing, they're spending the money to produce this energy, spending the power, losing energy, and just letting it go off into nowhere. If Bitcoin can take that, that gives them revenue, right? So then when they do pass the energy down when it is needed, they've already made some profit here. We can actually drive down the cost of electricity as a whole. They also get revenue, so they can upgrade their equipment, which means less breakage, a more dependable grid and more dependable energy and electricity for the communities that are, all of these things Bitcoin can fix and Bitcoin can help with, specifically on the mining side. So anything having to do with energy, any problem anywhere, it's pretty. I think my pinned tweet on X is any problem with energy anywhere. It's a pretty safe bet that Bitcoin can fix it. There's a group that's taking Bitcoin to Africa. They're called Gridless, and they're making mini micro hydroelectric dams on these rivers, and they're mining with Bitcoin miners that normally most people would not use. They just got thrown away in the U.S. And they would send them there, and they'd take the Bitcoin, and they're using that profit to bring water and electricity to villages that have never had it before. And they're taking young men from the villages, bringing them in, and turning them into electrical and fluid mechanical engineers, right? It's amazing. So just bringing Bitcoin mining to your community and finding a way to plug it in somewhere gives you the opportunity to enhance and bring additional prosperity. Um, it's always going to be messy. Sometimes it's noisy. Sometimes people don't like it. That's fine. But there's almost always a way to plug in a Bitcoin miner somewhere and turn it into some sort of value. Even if you said you were running, I think you told me you were running a BitAxe or a
Yeah,
nerd miner or
BitX.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even just that, I set those up with my boys, and and then they said, "Oh, well, so what is this doing?" And I said, "Well, it's trying to guess the nonce. It's trying to guess the number that's used only once in cryptography to win that block and that subsidy." Well, what block? Well, then I pull up the mempool and I show them all the transactions trying to be made in the mempool and put together, and then once you guess it, boom, you get that block, and then I like, oh, well, what is that? Oh, that transaction right there. See that one? That's the one where I sent it to you and you send it to your brother, and it opens up this technology in a way that's tactile and people can actually see. You don't have to imagine magic internet money. You can actually put your hands on it and touch it and hear it and that sort of thing. So it's um, that's what I really like. The software, the development, those people are brilliant and geniuses. I don't think that way. I need something to touch, something to kind of, to build and with my hands and see and stuff. So, but Bitcoin is the magic technology that kind of enables me to do that. Um, and so it's a game changer. It's a life changer. Not just the Bitcoin itself, obviously, is too, but understanding the mining and the muscle behind those transactions is also a bit of a game changer as well.
I haven't really formed this thought properly, so please forgive me, everyone watching. But to think it through, like the mining is like, say Bitcoin living on the blockchain, that's in cyberspace. It's sort of like almost ethereal, but the mining like links it to physical reality.
Yeah.
And, like really grounds it and makes it fairly substantial. With that, I just want to go back to a couple of things you said earlier. You said like the miners, they can come and they can be that like base load. They can suck up that base load of power, and then if there's high demand, either like air conditioning or like HVAC, heating and cooling,
Mhm.
they can turn off. How quick can they turn off? Because I can just like pull the plug out of my BitX and it's off. Like it's just instantly stopped hash. And I don't know how good that is or safe it is for the
Sure.
actual miner. But those miners and immersion cooling or just air cooled, can you just get the circuit breaker and turn it off like that? Or do they ramp down and you want the oil and stuff to cool down slowly? Or how's that?
Well, the nice thing about immersion or liquid cooled, like they have at the chip, right? Hydro cooled miners as well. The nice thing about both of those is, the pumps can continue flowing and just kind of carry the heat away as it happens. But there's a number of different ways and technologies that people are developing right now. And obviously, if you're doing mining at a very large scale, like some of these, um, the publicly traded miners, the large scale farms all over the world that are 80, 100 megawatts of Bitcoin mining or more going on. Obviously, they have a little more sophisticated than, they're not going to flip a breaker and they're going to pull. Some of that's done at the software level on the miner. So, where what they do is they throttle down the voltage and to make it go down to like 3 to 5% power draw, right? But again, your hash rate is 3 to 5% of whatever it was too.
So it's
Um,
still hashing, but just at a slower rate. So like high electricity, it's like bang, bang, bang hash, or like less electricity, it's just slower
well, it's the
through.
same. It's the same rate, right? But less power. It's like saying there's 100 chips. There's not, but let's say there's 100 chips, and then it goes down to basically the power of one chip. It like goes from 235 terahash, 234 terahash down to 1 terahash, like your BitX, right? Or something like that.
Yeah.
But that's just one system. Some people will cut them completely, but what you want to do is ramp them down. It's a little bit, the longer you take to ramp them down, it's a little, especially in an air cooled environment, it's just a little bit better for the equipment and the materials on the chips, etc. But in a lot of cases, you in order to get it back up and running, you have to do like a hard reboot, but that's usually done at the software or the the software management level. So you have like a dashboard that shows you all your miners up, and so it's like a command center, right, kind of thing. And some your engineer kind of does that. Um, Sometimes, and at the very large scale level, there's certain electrical ways that it's smarter to bring those miners back up, right? Depending on the way that you have your electricity designed and the current and all of that. So the larger scale it is, right, the more advanced that solution can be. Also, you want them to come up as quickly as possible, and they may take a little while to warm back up and get back up to where they need to be, but you also want them to come up without any problems, right? So you can get very scientific about it. But in Texas, we get notifications, and we kind of know based on weather patterns and the heat, what's expected on the heat. If we're absolutely going to have to do it this day or not this day. The market in the electrical market in Texas is a real time, open, non regulated, deregulated market. So I could stay on, but let's say my power price is normally like 5 or 6 cents per kilowatt hour. If I don't turn off during those peak times of stress, I could still stay on, but I might pay 10, 20, 30 cents, even $1 per kilowatt hour based on the market value of that power, right? So it's all of that plays in. So if I know power is going to go through the roof, and if I don't shut off, right, I'm going to do whatever I have to do, whatever the system is, to shut it off as quick as possible. If that means my software fails and I got to go flip a switch and turn it off, the whole container, I might do that so I don't, run up a crazy electric bill, right?
Yeah.
But it's in Texas, it's interesting because there's an opportunity once you've proven that you can turn off and meet these standards the first year. The second year, you can buy power at, like, let's say I'm buying power at 5 cents, and then there's peak stress on the grid, and I turn off. If the value of that power goes up to 10 cents, I'll get 10 cents in credit back, right? So I'll end up getting to mine twice as much on that 5 cent power that I had, right? Because of the market. So what I can do is I can buy power, try to buy power when it's cheap, and then I can turn off and get credits back when it's more expensive. And
Wow.
so we're providing that service to balance the load for everybody. And our reward for that is that rebate, or depending on how you want to do it. It's interesting. And You always want to try to be on the good side of it. Otherwise, you got to cash out all your Bitcoin to pay that power bill. So, but again, it comes into this is what that economic, capitalistic system is supposed to do. It drives us to stay innovative, always find the most economical priced energy, whether it's waste energy or whether we're just buying it from the system that provides it, and then making sure we're operating in as responsible a way as possible. Right? If you don't get the Bitcoin, and you can lose everything. So we're very motivated to do things the right way.
I bet. Referencing Michael Dunworth again, he said in regards to Bitcoin mining, it's like I am paraphrasing a little bit, but like it's the hardest game on planet Earth. Like it's so cutthroat because everyone's trying to get the cheapest. But earlier you were saying, David, that some people are mining Bitcoin at like a cost basis of $60,000 at the moment, like roughly. It's 50% of today's prices. Do you know what the average price of like mining one Bitcoin today would be?
I mean, it would be a swag. It would be a sophisticated wild ass guess. There's no way. I wouldn't be I wouldn't be anywhere. Yeah, I wouldn't be anywhere near it. I don't think.
So here's another question.
I could kind of talk through the numbers, but I'll be way off. So
Yeah. So then, like on that, would it be fair to say that because it is so cutthroat and it is that really hard game of competition, that it would be pretty close to what spot is at the moment? Like I guess on average, maybe
I
just a little
mean,
bit under. Obviously, people have got
I
higher and
I
lower
don't think.
electricity prices.
Yeah, I don't think so. Because it doesn't make a lot of sense to do that, right? Like economically. Let's say Bitcoin is $120,000 and it costs you $128,000 to mine one Bitcoin in your system that you've developed, right? You've either made some terrible miscalculations and you just have to ride it out and hope that you're not going to lose too much money over time, or maybe it's a strange up or down, a peak that you have to deal with. But um, you would never design a system like that because you would just go buy Bitcoin on an exchange from someone. And if you had
Yeah,
enough money, you would go and say, "Hey, I want Bitcoin at a discount, right? I'm going to buy a lot of it." And um, you try to play the spread as Bitcoin is trading because it's volatile, right? That sort of thing. But if you're going to mine Bitcoin, you're encouraged to figure out the most economically way possible to do it. So there's no way. There are a few, I'm sure, people. In fact, I used to do this at my house when it was break even early on. I would mine Bitcoin up to the profitability of whatever the cost of electricity was at my house, and I considered it like my dollar cost average, right?
yeah,
Like I would normally buy that anyway, but when I'm doing that, when you're mining like that, you can take it, plug it in anywhere, and as long as you have an internet connection, you can participate in this crazy game. And you could the sats that you earn, the Bitcoin you earn, is non KYC Bitcoin. And if you've created a brand new wallet that nobody knows about, right, that you've never shared with anybody and never transacted with, nobody knows you have that, right? So I did used to do that. So it's possible that there's some people that are kind of doing that, right? But from an economic standpoint, most people can't drop 4 or 5 thousand US dollars on an ASIC miner, brand new ASIC miner, and plug it in somewhere at you know negative negative profitability, just for the fun of it, right?
yeah,
So that again, I don't know what that number would be, but I know that like you have a lot of country like Bhutan, right? Like
yeah,
there's a lot of countries out there that have hydroelectric facilities, hydroelectric dams that provide a lot of electricity, and sometimes people are using, sometimes they're not, and then they use that excess electricity to mine Bitcoin. It might be practically free for them, really, right? Just the maintenance on the dam and things like that. So their operation and power cost, I mean, it might be nothing, like half a penny or a third of a penny, right? Um, because the economics work for them. But I don't. It doesn't make any sense that anyone would kind of go the other way and push it up, right? Um, and it's really funny because I've been in mining 3 years before anyone even asked me and said, "Hey, how much does it cost you to create one Bitcoin? What's
yeah.
at scale?" And I was like, oh my god, I never even thought of
That's a
that.
good
It was kind
question.
of, it was weird. It seems like a very obvious metric, and now everyone's using it. This was maybe about a year and a half, 2 years ago. Someone asked me that question, and I was like, oh yeah, that's a much smarter metric. But they were looking at it because you're bringing in capital in to buy power and you're bringing capital in to buy the machines and all that stuff, right? So they were just valuing it in profitability percentage wise. It's like if I put $100 in and I get $120 out, that's a $20 20% profit, right? But this is a game changer, and when you realize what Bitcoin is, and you really commit to it, you don't care what money you have to invest to get it. You're just concerned about, okay, well, what kind of a discount am I getting? And so I may spend $100,000 on miners, and it may take me 12 months to get $100,000 back, but that $100,000 in Bitcoin could be worth $300,000 by the time I get it all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's a game changer, and again, it's just one of the ways that where Bitcoin is completely changing the rules of how you forecast and how you budget and all that thing. So
No, I love it. It's starting to get a little bit over time, so I just want to hand the stage over to yourself, David.
Mhm.
I'll put your X account below for people to be able to connect. But if you've got like a message or something that you'd like to share with the audience, where people can maybe find more information about yourself or about Bitcoin mining or to be able to get started, whatever it is, whatever you think would be valuable to share, the stage is yours.
sure. Well, yeah. I mean, you can follow me or reach out to me on X at David Branscombe. The moniker is Rebel in Texas. The B is a Bitcoin logo. Um, I just say, I mean, I encourage everyone to study Bitcoin. There's so many aspects of it that are interesting, but kind of earlier, talking about how tactile the mining is and the energy, and it's easier to see than the ethereal, the blockchain and things. I guess if I were to kind of explain it, what would be a good takeaway is, you have the blockchain is kind of the brain and the memories and the ledger. Um, the nodes, if you will, are kind of the central nervous system, right, of all of this, right? They verify that yes, this memory is correct or this memory is not, and this is correct and this is not. These transactions are accurate or they're false. And then the mining is kind of like the muscle, right? It's actually using the energy to move in the to get things done, and verify those transactions, which the transactions are really kind of what I see as the work, right? Moving value from one place to another. Even though you're not technically moving a Bitcoin, you're just getting access to it, through your keys and things like that. But I encourage everyone to study every aspect of Bitcoin they possibly can. Um, any kind of, there's a lot of good podcasts to watch, to get education on it. But I didn't get orange pilled by really learning a lot about Bitcoin. I started to study the dollar, fiat currency, how it's broken central banks. So if you really want to understand why Bitcoin, that's, I think, a great place to start. Understanding how central banks work, understanding how fiat currency, how inflation works. And then it really gives you the encouragement to opt out of the system, right? And really, Bitcoin is the only other system that it's really the only system that will work from that aspect. So um, just stay hungry for it, and do whatever you can to just stay humble and stack sats as much as you can. You have a very unique opportunity here to change your life. You'll wake up if you make some sacrifices now and put as much as you can into Bitcoin. You'll wake up in 4 or 5 years and your entire life will look different and change. And I want that for everybody. So I think that's the takeaway message I'd like for everybody to have.
No, I absolutely love that. On that thread of studying Bitcoin, have you read The Big Print by Lawrence Lepard?
I love Larry. I got to meet him where did I meet him? Met him in El Salvador at a halving party event in 2024. I am a huge fan of his. Uh, guy that came. He's still a bit of a gold bug, he'll tell you, right? But came from gold, so he's been looking for that for a long time. But man, one of the sharpest minds in finance, right? He's able to call things way ahead, and not to mention his CrossFit. That guy's in better shape than anybody I've ever met. He's in better shape than I am. So yeah, that's a great book. That's a fantastic one to read. The Creature from Jekyll Island, talking about the U.S. Federal Reserve, is a great one. Any of the Austrian economists is good. Um, the Bitcoin Standard was one of the first ones I read. If you're brand new and you don't know a lot about finance, Brian DeMint wrote a great book called
Bitcoin
Bitcoin
evangelism, and
Evangelism.
then
Yeah,
parallels as
there you
second book.
go. And Parallel. Oh, Parallel's good. Yeah, him and Knut.
Really
And
good.
yeah, it's
Princey.
so yeah. I've got a fun library over on the other side of the room here as well. But but yeah, Larry's a great. There's a man. That's a really good one. That's a really good one. Yeah.
I think, like I've got a saying on this channel, it made it into parallel, page 157, I think. Read the books, read the bugs. And like I've tried to give everyone so many books, the Bitcoin Standard and just all of them. And so many people like, too much. But
Yeah.
with the big print, I've had the most success because, like,
Yeah.
yes, it goes into everything that's so hard to understand, but in a way that the average person can comprehend it.
Yeah.
Lawrence is just, I reflect your sentiment, man. I haven't met him in person yet, but he's just one of my favorite people on planet Earth. I just, so much love and respect for the mission that he's on and how humble he is as
Yeah.
well. There's no
It's like
reason he needs to do this, and he
if
just,
you've yeah
he cares.
if you've seen the it's not the big print. I can see it in my head. What's the one with Christian Bale and um, about the two?
Resistance money.
No,
No,
not the book. The movie about Michael Burry and
The
the
Big Short.
2008. Yeah, The Big Short. Right. I don't know. Sorry. Well, it's late. It's late here in the States. The Big Short. If you've seen that movie, reading the first part of Larry's book where he talks about him standing up, it's like
Yeah,
I see it as that scene in the movie when Steve Carell stands up and is calling out these guys or what. That's what he did, right?
yeah.
It's literally that. It's like that movie, but Larry lived it, right? So yeah,
In real life.
it's great. It's great.
Yeah.
God, that was yeah. Even just if you read the intro, you're gonna get hooked and you're gonna read the rest of the book. No question. Yeah.
No question. And like, man, if I give someone that and they read it front to back cover and they're like, Bitcoin's not for me, I'm like, cool. Like you now have enough to make your own informed decision whether you
Yeah.
continue to study it or you totally ignore it. But if people like Bitcoin's not for me, I'm like, have you read the big print?
You know,
No. Well,
yeah,
then please.
yeah.
Like you need to keep reading.
I used to get upset when I would talk to people I really cared about or loved that didn't get it, or they're like, it's not for me. And I knew what it had done in my life. And I used to get really, there was a while I could get angry about it. Right.
Yeah.
And then one of my favorite actually Bible verses is interesting. It applies here well. Um, it's let no unwholesome word come out of your mouth, but only what is good for building others up in
Hmm.
accordance to their needs. So, but the last part is really key, so that it may benefit those who listen, right? So you can tell people the good information. You can try to help them, right? You've
Yeah.
done your part. It's up to them to figure it out. Someone came to me in 2014, 2015 and told me about it. I mean, I was kicking myself, right? I could have got into Bitcoin when it was 500, 5,
Yeah.
600, 800, 1300, right? All of that. And looking back on, but I wasn't ready for it. And even if I had, it would have gone up from 500 to like $2,000 and I would have sold it and thought I was brilliant, you know?
Yeah.
So I still wouldn't have all that Bitcoin, right? So it's, it's whenever they're ready, we just have to share. But the easiest way to share is just to be that example, live your life, and show that to those little things. Like when you go in and you're like, oh, what do we have to do to take care of this animal, this pet? No problem. Do it. Right.
Yeah.
my son, the example I got to give to my son, right? It's like I've had phone calls with people that I've met on X who say, "Hey, you're on a Bitcoin standard." I said, "Yep. As soon as money comes in, it goes into Bitcoin." And they're like, "How do you do that?" Right? So it's that
Very
kind of,
easily.
yeah. Well, after a
How's
while,
anyone leave money in the bank, cash in the bank?
oh, no, no,
That
no,
feels
no. Negative
dangerous.
negative bank accounts for sure. It's yeah, I mean, to be fair, there's no money in there anyway. So it's fine. They don't need
That's
it.
right.
Uh but yeah, it's just live that example, right? Just live your life and live your best life. If you want to spend your Bitcoin on something that's important to you, do it, right? I mean, I when and you have to if you put all your money in it, right? Like all my
Yeah.
money comes in and I immediately put it in, and then when the bills come due in a few weeks, that's when I cash it out. And they're like, "Well, doesn't that, that hurt you or whatever?" I was like, "Yeah, but sometimes, right? But like it's so little compared to the reward that I get. It's
Yeah.
worth it to me. I don't have to time the market perfectly. I just have to be in Bitcoin, and it's worth it to me to sleep. I sleep better at night knowing I have all of my worth in Bitcoin than I ever did when I had a large chunk of money in the bank.
Yeah.
So it's unique, and I want that for everybody. Not everybody's going to get it when you tell it to them, but yeah, we just keep working. So
I love that. For everyone out there, I've put Rebels links below in the description. We'll have to do a part 3 and 4 of this. We'll get you back on in a couple of months. But
okay.
everyone, please do something nice for yourself today and for somebody else out there. Be blessed. Peace.